My walk, how I fell short, worsened, I found healing with God. Part 1. My testimony. I love you. I have seen, heard, and felt the word of God, and feel compelled to write this. It is with both fear and joy that I write to you. I pray that in the telling of my journey, some of you will find use in my testimony. I know that most will disregard this, and that your ears are not ready to truly listen. In truth, I myself have ignored this message for most of my life. I'm aware of the stigmas and how most of you will view this. Some will likely think less of me in telling this story. Because of the gravity of seeing the truth, I am prepared to subject myself to losing standing with all of you if it means that just one will be strengthened in Christ. I know your pain. I know that deep down each of you have a chasm cut deep through your souls that longs to heal. We spend our lives trying to find something to fill the chasm, to take away the pain, to give us hope for tomorrow, or to make us feel like there is purpose to our existence. Unfortunately, none of these are a cure. Sure, they can really feel helpful in that there is temporary distraction or relief in focusing our energy to these worldly saps, but they are unhealthy to your soul and will fail. If you need proof of what I've said, open your eyes. See that there are people out there with the things you wish you had, the job you wish you had, the house you wish you had, the popularity, power, influence, and you will notice a common thread among them. They are all unfulfilled and continuing to search for that secret salve. You might be one who understands that money doesn't buy happiness already, and you have found other things like family and friends to fill this chasm. But even those things are unable to heal you. Open your eyes to the people you know that have friends, family, and even children that they adore and ask if they are truly fulfilled. You might say that they seem pretty happy in the lives they've created, but what will happen when their children, friends, and family die, change, or when their life takes them further away from us? You, who have defined your happiness through such things, will be left empty again. Depending on how long your life was defined by such things, the sharper the loss will feel when they're gone. It is only in a deeper belief in the everlasting that can actually heal this wound. To be more direct, it is love for all. When you are filled with love for each person, that can never be destroyed and does not have a shelf life. From this love you can derive purpose, fulfillment, relief, forgiveness, and a true state of life that will bring you joy and happiness. The secret quite simply is love, and that God is love. 1 John 4:2-8. If you fill your lives with true love toward each other, you fill yourselves with God. I know the urge to turn now and say, there are many religions out there that preach love, and there are many ways I can live outside of religion altogether and still dedicate myself to the idea of love, but this isn't true. I'm not going to spend time pointing to why all of the other religions of the world fall short, but suffice it to say, this is something that I have researched deeply. If you're of the mindset of thinking that these other religions are similar, I would simply challenge you to put that belief to the test and prove me wrong. Find an answer that teaches love and forgiveness toward everyone. Find an answer that doesn't believe we will be held to the scales of justice, forcing us to fight to outweigh the wrongs we've done in life. Find an answer that has historicity, that answers the question why, and that demonstrates God's desire to connect with every person who has ever lived. Do the work yourself, and you will find yourselves at the same answer I have found, and your belief will be solidified through the trust you put in your own research. If you're one who is self-righteous and believes they can be a good person without religion, I can relate to you. I walked that path for decades. Take measure of the life you lived and honestly ask yourself the questions: am I or have I been driven by lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, or pride? Which of those are a part of your life regularly? If you've come to the honest conclusion that we're all guilty of having these weaved throughout every decision we've made in life and still feel self-righteous, then ask yourself the questions: what has my self-righteousness led me to? Are you fulfilled, filled with righteous purpose, and driven by love to help everyone around you? Does your existence and the path you're on lead to more or less love existing in the world? If you're thinking that God is something we will never understand, and that there is no purpose to life, I can relate to you as well. You who are agnostic or deists have a tough road to walk. You've never felt a miracle in your life that is unexplainable. You've never asked why or to what end. In truth, I pity you because I was you. I know how hard it is to really put in time and energy thinking about things of this nature. For you, it is probably going to take something catastrophic within your own lives to break the foundation of this thinking, as was the case with my story. I wish I had the right words to put on paper to stir within you what was stirred within myself, but I do not. All I have to give you is telling my story in hopes that when, and if you're ever blessed with having that view shattered, you will in your emptiness remember that you're not alone, you are loved, and your life is more precious than you know. That not only is God active and alive in humanity, He has been with you every step of the way with arms outstretched waiting for you to take Him in embrace. My heart breaks for you all because godless life is hard. I know that you either are or will be hurt, alone and empty. I would give all that I have for you to feel what I do, to know what I know, and to believe what I believe. The crushing truth is that most of you will not be changed. Most of you will forget having ever read this or will simply say good for you. Some will even mean it. I weep for you. Would that I could stir you to action by force, but no amount of pressure would change your soul. Because each of us in life has the freedom to choose your own destiny. It is up to each of us to decide how we spend that life and who we choose to serve. Make no mistake, we all make that decision and dedicate our lives accordingly. Whether you're driven to please yourself or others, or if you set sights on worldly goals, spiritual or religious views, you decide. So with a somber mind, I give you the only thing I can, testimony of my walk and path. All of the warts, failings, and shortcomings for you to do with it what you will. This isn't meant to be an autobiography or showing of how great I've become, but to the contrary, show you how I fell short, was redeemed, and rededicated to Christ. Please understand that I write this to you with no ambition, but love and hope. I had an upbringing that some would call advantageous and others would call unfortunate. For me, I consider it all integral to who I've become, and can see how each pain, trauma, and blessing helped form me as a person and lead me to exactly where I am today. Both of my parents were very young when I was born, and neither was ready for the challenge of raising children. My mother succumbed to this pressure and left me when I was 5 years old to pursue a life without the burden of being a mother. I won't spend time writing what it's like for a young person to not have a parent. You can all either relate or imagine your own lives in this context. My father did all he could to provide for his children, but that often required long hours of being away working and nights spent just trying to recover. As a young man, he sacrificed his time and energy just to provide life's necessities. I was blessed with a grandmother that was able to provide me with the attention and love that all children need. I took comfort in her and my large extended family. When I was 7, my father left us to go to a trade school and was gone for a large part of the year. While away, he met his second wife and married again. With this new unification, he came back to retrieve my brother and me from our grandmother to bring us to a new life, 500 miles away. This was massively traumatic to me. I cannot express to you how close to my grandmother I was by this point, other than to say that she had become my mother I never had. On moving day, I saw her and she gave me a Bible. I resented my stepmother for being the reason I was pulled from home. To some degree, I think she also resented my brother and me, who served as constant reminders of his past marriage. It was around this time that I became aware that I was different from the other kids I grew up around and went to school with. My birth mother is Asian, which was really pronounced in my physical appearance as a child. In all of the neighborhoods I lived, most were predominantly white. I remember feeling out of place at holiday gatherings with my stepmother's family. I remember going to dinners with my family, self-conscious, always looking for someone who looked like me, and always feeling like onlookers would see me and think that I was adopted. This self-consciousness turned to self-loathing. I began to hate myself for being different. During this time, I began to feel disconnected from my family. I was struggling to find an outlet for the depression and felt as though I had no one to help me. My father always had a passion for baseball and pushed me to the sport as well. It never really resonated with me on any level, but I did it because I thought it would bring me closer to him. I can remember one very distinct memory, playing on my first little league team. The coach's child had bad asthma. Coach would always comfort his son and was very conscious of his breathing to the point that he would stop games, run to the mound just to give his child a hug and a dose of his inhaler. I was so lonely that I wished 4 months that I had asthma so that I could feel that kind of love. On one day, when my pain was at its greatest, crying harder than I ever had, I picked up the Bible my grandmother gave me and prayed. I wasn't sure how to pray, but I asked God that He would send me my grandmother, who was the only person in the world that I felt I could talk to. No sooner had the prayer been finished, I got a knock on the door, and she was there. Now, my grandmother is not the traveling type. In my entire life, I've only known her to leave her hometown a handful of times. The fact that she had traveled across states for a visit, at that moment when I was at my lowest, was nothing short of a miracle. I recited the 23rd Psalm for her from memory, hoping that she would be proud, and I distinctly remember her saying "good job," with a level of apathy that struck me as cold at the time. I don't think she ever realized or remembered her instruction to me when I last saw her years before. I had really worked hard to recite it, memorize it, and looked forward to showing her that I put in the effort. For me, it was so meaningful that I was able to complete the task. I was dumbfounded that she didn't have the same sense of it that I had. I now understand, 31 years later, that she was simply trying to. My uncle visited once and hooked our house up with free cable. This included access to premium channels. It took me little time to discover the late-night content, and I started an addiction to pornography and an unhealthy burgeoning view that women were objects to be desired. I had unfettered access and watched nearly every night. I also became jealous of my older step-brother, who had cooler toys and the newest game systems. I coveted these things and began to really resent the fact that he had not only access to his mother and my father, but also to his birth father, who would send in these cool gifts. I didn't see the pain he was in until I was much older. My coveting became so great that I started to steal. I stole things from stores and family. I lied when confronted and saw how easy it was for me to be convincing. My father's new career was short-lived. He suffered a catastrophic injury to his back that forced the family to once again relocate by the time I was 10 years old. On the one hand, I was thrilled to be within close proximity of my grandmother and extended family, but on the other hand, we were faced with some very difficult financial issues, and my father fell into a deep depression that would take him years to come out of. My stepmother worked very hard all throughout my childhood on a small wage, just to provide the bare necessities for our family. We stayed with relatives for a time and ultimately ended up moving to an adjacent town where my parents were able to purchase a vacant wooded lot. The combined income of her grinding non-stop and my father's disability checks left our family in a position that we all had to pull together, fishing, hunting, thrift shopping, growing our own food, and doing all we could just to help ease the financial stress. The labor required from all of us was nothing short of exhausting. We cut down trees for heat, planted, sowed, and maintained the property by hand. When that evolved to having, and the year I entered 6th grade, I still felt like an outcast. I did not have any real friends, and once again, that loneliness really took hold. It wasn't until I became a bully in school did I learn that I could go from not existing in the eyes of my peers to being someone the kids wanted to associate with. There was one girl who was very heavy in my class who received most of my ridicule. I bullied her every day, at times to the point she would cry. My heart breaks to this day for her. I can't even remember her name, but I carry that shame and regret. At the time, I saw her as a means to an end and felt great in the new popularity I had. It led to my first girlfriend, first kiss, and made me the guy other kids wanted to hang around. By 8th grade, my second year of junior high, the first time in my life I had gone to the same school in consecutive years, the script had flipped. I became the one that was bullied. The other kids gave me the same medicine, was doling out, for the same reasons I had done it. Because I looked Asian, I was called chink and gook every day. I shrank back down and once again felt completely small and broken.